Commissioner Chinas, let's try again.
On this date, 10 months ago, the World Health Organization confirmed that Europe had become the epicentre of the COVID-19 pandemic. The battle against the virus is not over, but thanks to science and collaboration, there is light at the end of the tunnel. The biggest crisis of our generation has demonstrated that health really is our wealth. So is it time to put it at the core of European politics? Good afternoon and welcome to everyone watching live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter to our event towards a European Health Union coming to you from the European Parliament in Brussels. My name is Kevin Purcell and I'm joined on screen by EPP Group Chairman Manfred Weber and here in studio by my co-moderator, the Vice Chairwoman of the EPP Group, Esther de Lange, MEP. Esther, quite the lineup we have today and important topics in light of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Absolutely, quite a lineup and important topics. And for me, the most important one is that the solidarity and the cooperation that we've shown when looking for this COVID vaccine, it shows that when we stand together, Europe can really even save lives. And of course, we pooled our research efforts. And if we can do that for finding a vaccine in a short amount of time, imagine what we could do, if we stood together for other diseases like cancer, like Alzheimer's. And one conclusion is also that health, as a virus doesn't stop at a border, health is not only a national issue, it is also a European one. So, what will be the next steps towards this European Health Union? I think that will be one of the many key questions today.
So the event is broken down into three separate parts and we'll have questions at the end of each segment. In a moment, we'll hear from Margaritas Chinas, the Vice President of the European Commission and Commissioner for Promoting our European Way of Life. But first, I'd like to turn to Manfred Weber, if he's on screen there. Manfred, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Hello.
Manfred, hello, how are you? Look, firstly, I'd like to know how important this year is, 2021, when you try and push towards this European Health Union.
Well, it's a key year for this idea of creating a real health union on European level. And there is always one subject out in the mind of the citizens of the European Union, and that is about corona, that is about health, that is about protecting especially the elderly people, and that is what we have to do. That's why I share what Esther said. It is a great message, first of all, that we practice solidarity on European level. There is vaccination, no first and second class European. There is no rich or poor country. There is no east, west, south, north. There not only Europeans. We started in the same moment with the vaccination for the Europeans, and that's a great signal of solidarity. And an additional point is that together we are stronger in a way that we also can look for reliability rules, for example, because we need the trust of citizens that they are allowed to be vaccinated. That are the elements we have guaranteed, and that's why it's a great moment to talk about health. And to talk about health in a broader sense, because when I was doing campaign 1.5 years ago, I was in Cyprus, I was in Spain, I was in Lithuania, and whenever I spoke about our campaign program, and whenever I mentioned the idea that we Europeans together are capable to fight against cancer and to even beat cancer, then you saw in the eyes of the people that they really like it and they really dream about it. Probably it's far away, but the last weeks and months gave us a kind of proof that together we can do it. The vaccine we get now from different companies in Europe, is European research money, European common networks on the research field, gives us a proof that a lot is possible, really a lot is possible. And having in mind that, for example, in this cancer field, 1.3 million Europeans every year die still on cancer, gives us a clear idea that this is one of the big challenges ahead of us. And that's why we want to start. We want to make a kickstart of this health union for the European Union. Nobody would have had a thought that this would become so dramatically a top issue for us Europeans. Now it is the case, and now we have to transform it to a positive thing, to show to the world that our European way of life, the way how we approach things, where the person is in the center, not markets or products, but the person is in the center, the individual person, that this way of thinking really is creating a good future for all of us. And that's why I'm glad that we have so much guests and so much high-profile participants among us in today's health conference. The EPP is clearly committed to this aspect of our health union, and the EPP is a driving force in this field.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. Lots to discuss. Esther.
Yes, thank you. And now over to, as announced, our Commissioner Margaritas Schinas. Margaritas, are you with us? Let me see if I can bring Margaritas in. Of course, for him, I would have two fundamental questions. Starting maybe at the beginning, as the granddaughter of a Dutch coal miner, I know that Europe started with coal and steel. Very hands-on, very concrete, but always with a bigger goal, which was peace and stability. And my first question to Commissioner Schinas would be, is health now that new 21st century issue, ambition even, to bring Europe forward?
Hello, good afternoon to everybody. I don't think the group could have found a better moment, a better subject for this conference. Indeed, as Manfred said, this is a moment where Europe is at the heart of developments, and is one occasion that will be remembered, I'm convinced, that down to history as a Rubicon moment, very much as was the case with the single market and the euro. This emerging health union will seal the process of European integration and will project a very clear message of confidence and solidarity that when we Europeans can act together, then we can make it. But I want to be very clear from the very start, Esther, the European Health Union, the EU Health Union, is not about Europe proposing or structuring a single healthcare system for all of Europe. This is not what we want to do. What we want to do together is to be able to bring about a new architecture where we can detect, prepare, and respond collectively to health threats. Focus on common needs, improve our crisis response, do better preparedness through data exchange and joint procurement, and making medicines and vaccines available throughout the European single market. This is where the added value of the European Union is. And of course, vaccines now is the big moment, is the big theme, the big subject. But vaccines, which is indeed the federal step, is part of a new constellation of different planets that are coming now together, and they're now coming together with force. Let me say just a few words on each of these planets. First is our agencies, the ECDC and the EMA, which we are reinforcing with new statutes so that they can act proactively, not ex post, in helping us with preparedness, early response, and warning. Then we have a new pharma strategy. We are modernizing one of the oldest pieces of EU legislation dating 20 years ago. To have affordable medicines for all, but also foster the competitiveness of our pharma industry worldwide. We have the new EU for Health program, which the Parliament very generously doted with 5 billion euros. This is the first self-standing EU health program for the next 7 years. We have the new agency HERA, which is the new Health Emergency Response Authority that we will be proposing later this year. And we have, of course, the Europe Action Plan Against Cancer, which brings together everything that Europe can mobilize to fight this scourge. And finally, we will have soon a proposal on the new health data space, which is important because without the adequate provision of data availability, our health union will never be sufficiently robust to cope with this threat. To cut a long story short, this is a small miracle that is happening at the European level. For the first time in decades, a European health union is a tangible, emerging reality. Not the soundbite, not the slogan, not an objective. It is happening, and this is a great moment for Europe.
It is indeed, and so many steps being taken in a short period of time. May I ask you, Commissioner, you're also Commissioner for the European Way of Life. And my sisters, who are, by the way, both nurses, so they will be paying attention to what you say, they always tell me we should always put the people first in our job. So is putting the people first also in innovation and in all these initiatives at the European level that you described, is that part of our European way of life, also in health?
Let me start with a personal story. When my job was announced, Manfred Weber called me to congratulate me. And he told me, you will be in charge of the most anthropocentric portfolio in the new commission. And I think he's right. I have the privilege and the honor with this portfolio of European way of life, of bringing together elements that have persons, the people at their heart, be it security, a Europe that protects, be it mobility, be it solidarity. This is at the core of what we do. And let me give you an example how this relates to the European way of life. Let's take the vaccine strategy. When last June we presented this strategy at the college level, very few people thought that it would work. It was a collective leap of faith. We did it with confidence. We did it to bridge the expectations gap of the citizens who wanted Europe more present, but we had no certainty that this would work. Now, only 5 months later, not only it does work, but it also shows us, and that's for your sisters probably, what the cost of non-Europe would have been. Let's imagine for a second what would have happened if we didn't have this European approach to vaccines. The big member states would have absorbed practically everything at the expense of the others. But even by doing that, they would not serve their purpose, because unless the others would reach a certain level of vaccination, they would be always exposed to the risks of mobility in the internal market. And the smaller and medium member states would have never managed to negotiate adequate quantities and doses of vaccines at the price that Europe provided, because they would have to compete amongst themselves and amongst the bigger ones. So that's what the European way of life is about. Our unity is our force, and our solidarity is the name of the game. And that's why it makes me furious when I see that certain populist parties and politicians at some parts of the geography try to attack the European way of life, try to attack our solidarity in vaccines, because they know that if Europe succeeds in this, that weakens their position, makes them feel weaker.
There, and a nice Bruce Springsteen quote from the Commissioner there. It does take a leap of faith to get things going. Thank you very much, Commissioner, and thank you, Chairman Weber, for now.
So we'll now begin with our first topic, Innovative Europe out of the pandemic and beyond. And we're delighted to be joined by Maria Gabriel, the European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, Franz Werner Haas, CEO of CureVac, and Dr. Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer. Let me just check to see if the Commissioner is here. Commissioner, can you hear me? Nope, I'm hearing nothing in my earpiece. So maybe we'll pass over to Esther for the interview with Franz Werner Haas from CureVac.
Sure, I'll take it from there for the moment. We are extremely pleased to have with us today the CEO of CureVac, Franz Werner Haas. And from Mr. Haas, again, thank you for being with us. I would like to know, well, many things, but one of the central questions, I think, for all of us is how crucial is it in practice to you, Mr. Haas, that we have a European approach on health innovation and not simply a national one? And I'm not only talking about the development of the COVID vaccines, but also with other medical advances, maybe also in the field of personalised medicine, which is a challenge ahead of us. Mr. Haas, we're all looking forward to your contribution.
Okay, I think we have some technical issues, Esther, at the moment with some of our guests, but we do hope to speak to Franz Werner Haas from CureVac and, of course, the CEO of Pfizer. Pfizer, as you remember, the first, along with BioNTech, to have the vaccine rolled out. Quite the achievement there, really.
Quite the achievement, but let's remember that when we started this adventure, you know, trying to find a vaccine, having one developed within less than a year is already a miracle of modern research, let me put it that way. But when we started the process, when the Commission started the process of buying these or having these purchase agreements, as they are called, you know, the right to buy certain amounts of vaccines once they are developed, once we embarked on that mission, months ago, nobody knew which would be the first vaccine, to get across the finish line. So I think it was extremely wise of the European Commission to make sure they had, as they say in Dutch, I don't know if it's an English saying, but to have various eggs in one basket. Yeah. Basically, they made sure they had the right to buy all the reliable medicines that were on the market. And I think it's worth reminding people that only a couple of months ago, we thought that actually another vaccine would be the one getting across the finish line first. So, we are actually, thanks to negotiating together in a position whereby we have 2 vaccines on the market already and more coming.
Yeah, I think we have Dr. Borla on screen, hopefully now. Dr. Albert Borla, CEO of Pfizer. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And we're just talking about you being the first out of the traps, really, with the vaccine. Quite an achievement, and congratulations on the success. Possibly, one of the greatest achievements of our time, finding a vaccine at such short notice. I wanted to know how what you thought of cooperation, trying to get to this point and cooperating with others.
Yes, first of all, let me say that what a great honor it is for me, not only as CEO of Pfizer, but also as a European, to speak today in front of members of the European Parliament and in front of the People's Party of Europe. I think we knew from the beginning that this crisis would take both the power of science, but also the power of collaboration to defeat it. And I'm happy to say that in our case, we found the perfect partner in BioNTech. Ugur Sahin, that will be with you, I believe, later, and his company, they share our passion for science, our focus on patients, and our appreciation for the power of collaboration. And this, I think, was a pivotal, this quality of collaboration was a pivotal reason why we were the ones that we cut the line first. I think our 2 companies have a relation that dates back, and that's why it's very relevant to your question, to the summer of 2018, when we began working together on a flu vaccine. But over the past 10 months, we have been leveraging the capabilities of the 2 companies. So Pfizer's leading scientific capabilities in many different disciplines, but particularly in vaccine discovery and development. That was something that we are doing for more than 100 years. And in vaccine manufacturing and distribution, to quickly design and run multiple scientific experiments, scale, manufacture, and distribute large quantities of high quality. Of course, nothing of that would be possible without the complementing BioNTech's significant mRNA expertise and scientific capabilities that were gained over almost a decade of them, of full dedication to the science. And I think this is why it took us less than a year to bring the vaccine to the world without cutting any corners.
And just to bring us up to speed, we heard in recent days that the EU has struck a deal to double the supply of your vaccine to 600 million doses. I was wondering if you can maybe talk us through the timeline for this. How quickly can these be produced and distributed, do you think?
First of all, let me make a general comment. Right now, our main focus and effort around the world is to improve our manufacturing capabilities. And so that will provide vaccines to all, not only our beloved Europeans, but to all the citizens of the world. And I'm very happy to announce that yesterday and on Monday, actually this week, me and Ugur announced that right now we are in a position to feel confident that it will dramatically increase the production of our vaccines. And right now, we expect that we should be able this year to deliver 2 billion doses against the 1.3 that we had before, and we continue. So the efforts are not stopping. The European Union has secured a significant amount of doses. That's true. And of course, the European authorities was pressing for earlier deliveries of the quantities, and we had to balance demand around the world, of course. But I have to say Europe, because they moved actually quite fast, particularly in this second phase. They have significant quantities coming early enough. From the 600, for example, the additional, initially Europeans had got 200 million doses, as you know, that was spread around the year. Then they contracted us for an additional 100, and they insisted, and they were able to achieve that 50 million of these 100 will be in the second quarter. And then we negotiated an additional 200, and they insisted, and we agreed that we will deliver 75 million in the second quarter. So right now in the second quarter, through these three contracts, we'll accumulate significant doses. And of course, we are giving the first quarter doses that always were contracted. So I believe, rightly so, Europeans can say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Of course, we should not relax the measures, and we should all listen to the health authorities' suggestions of every country. I think they have the best interests of the citizens in their heart, and they know what to do. So a little bit of patience, but very effective vaccines are coming, and I believe that will become a very important tool to have an end in this pandemic pretty soon.
Okay, Doctor, stay where you are for a moment. I think we have Franz Werner Haas, so I'll hand over to Esther.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Indeed, Franz Werner Haas, who is the CEO of CureVac, is with us now, hopefully. And from Mr. Haas, well, let us first test the connection. Mr. Haas, are you with us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello, everybody.
Sorry, Mr. Haas, for all of you. There he is, and it's a pleasure to see you, sir. What I would like to hear from you is how crucial is actually a European compared to an only national approach to health innovation for your company when it comes to developing COVID medicines, vaccines, I should say, but also for more general issues. Personalised medicine is a big challenge ahead of us. How important is this European approach in this area?
Yeah, thank you very much, and sorry for the hiccup up in the beginning in this brave new world, the new reality we are dealing with, we are trying to resolve. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. As we could see that the virus is not taking any respect of nationalities, of genders, of color of the skin or whatever. So it is a kind of international effort what we have to do, especially in Europe, as we have got different kind of nations, different kind of legislations. We need to act fast. In order to get this entire new health system, let's call it new health system, where the regulatory authorities need to act together, how to synchronize processes in order to get, as we could see, and especially again, congratulations to BioNTech and Pfizer and also Moderna, to get vaccines developed very fast, but also approved very fast without, and that's a very important point of view, without making any concessions to the safety and tolerability. And so this is what we will see most probably on the regulatory side, but then again also, and this is when I entered into this discussion, it's even if a technology like mRNA is not new, we are working on it now for 20 years, especially in the immune stimulating part, which is vaccines. Low dosages, not a repetitive dosage. You exactly know what the target is all about. So, and this is an international effort, what we have to do. There was nothing that much known about this new virus. And so it is international transparency, but for Europe, it's certainly also then again how to acquire, how to get the dosages, because it's like a journey. You always start with the first step, and therefore you really need to see where the dosages should come first. And if you try to get this in the different kind of nations, there will be a kind. This costs time. If there is a bigger effort like Europe then was doing with the advanced purchase agreements, and then say we dealing with it, and then we will see how to distribute it on a different kind of key, because this is exactly where politics is asked to do this, because there will always, when you start innovation, there will only be a limited dosage available at the moment, independently what you promise them for the years to come. And for the next pandemic, I think it will be much better because what we are building up in manufacturing. We are producing now mRNA on GMP since 2006, but there was no product. But now the product came overnight, and it has been developed not overnight. It took a year, but all the capacity what is going to be built up globally will stay because we always will produce mRNA. And like the colleagues from Pfizer, Moderna, BioNTech, and also CureVac, what we are building up will be there for the next pandemic as well.
Well, that's an important point there, I think, from the CEO of CureVac, saying that, you know, the fact that they could deal with the EU, so to say, when it comes to the distribution of the vaccines, and then the EU taking care of the internal distribution among the 27 member states was a huge improvement on efficiency. Maybe a question that I pick up here spontaneously. You said that the technique that you are using is not new. That's true, but neither is our legislation. I know our European legislation, when it comes to dealing with new techniques in particular, is also very old. Is it up to speed, or is there a need to update it? Are we losing innovation and research to other parts of the world because our legislation is not up to date?
I think the current crisis will leave a footprint in what we can do better to synchronize. First of all, to synchronize, because it's very hard also for people on the street who will get the vaccines to understand that there are different kind of speeds. Let's put it like that. Even in Europe, then in the one country it's approved, in the other country it's not approved. So are there made certain concessions on safety and tolerability where other people are not? So am I a kind of example now to take the vaccine? So if there is a unique approach, and I think this will change, it will leave a footprint. And as you say, innovation is always a revolution. You have to break up with something which has been there, and you're starting something new. And this will be reflected in this kind of regulated area where we are. This will leave a footprint in the regulation there as well, of course.
Yes, so that is then back to us as European legislators to get our homework done there. Thank you very much for that reminder, Franz-Werner Haas. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I understand that now we also have our Commissioner Gabriel online, so I hand back to you, Kevin.
Yes, stay where you are, both of you gentlemen, for some questions in a few moments. But I want to bring in the Commissioner, Maria Gabriel, if she is there. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for joining us today. My first question to you is, and it links back to what we've been hearing from our guests so far, during the pandemic, Europe has made a difference. How did the European Commission support research and innovation to fight COVID-19? Commissioner, if you're there. Is the Commissioner there?
It's okay now?
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for your first question. Indeed, the European Commission, the European Union, especially in the field of science, research, innovation, was in the front line since the beginning of this crisis. And that's my first point. That was possible to react so quickly because we invested in research and innovation for many years. And I think that will be one of the main messages today, to see how much the investment in research is a strategic investment that allow us really to react very quickly. Since the month of January, we opened the first call for project, so we didn't wait the mid of March in order to mobilize the community of researchers, and I'm really very proud of them. Second, that's not enough only to have investment and to have instruments at your disposal. Those instruments should be flexible. And here with CureVac, BioNTech, we have good examples because we have a very good instrument with the European Investment Bank, and that was extremely important to have enough flexible instruments to be there to support companies in this very crucial, critical moment when they need this this support. And I think that it will be one of the lessons learned from this crisis. Another important aspect is the coordination with member states. Esther, you said it's an European issue when we talk about health, and that's why we need to continue to promote this cooperation and coordination with member states. And from our side, in the month of April, in only 20 days, we created together with our member states an ERA versus Corona action plan, 10 very precise actions. And the first one, it was to create a platform where we can exchange data in real time. I think that will be one of the main challenges, to continue to have these data, to assure access to this data, especially for small companies. They don't have the same resources like the big ones, in order really to incentivize our researchers and our innovators to continue to propose us new products and services. And one of the continuation of this that will be to create the European network for clinical trials. And I think that it will be one thing where together with my team we'll continue to work. Another important aspect, really, we managed to support our startups and our SMEs in order to help them to make a contribution for the resolution of this crisis. That was possible thanks to the European Innovation Council and thanks to the hackathon that we have organized, the biggest one in the world, where we all have seen how much is important to coordinate, to exchange information and to work together. So now I think that we have some very solid experience, and what is very positive that it's thanks to the new Horizon Europe program, with an increase of 30% of the budget in comparison with the previous program, we have more possibilities, not only to take some lessons learned, but to insist how much it's important to have common policies in this, especially when we need to anticipate that will be not the final one, crisis, pandemics. We need really here to ensure synergies between the cluster health in Horizon Europe, the new Health for EU program, and how we can, together with the European Innovation Council, build these synergies. We need to make the access to funding more rapid. We need to continue to exchange data. We need to invest in our capacities of production. We all have seen that somehow our weakness at this moment, that means close cooperation between industry and the world of research. And in our European research area, we have a very concrete proposal for a joint roadmaps between industry and academia. And finally, really to address the issue of how to build ecosystems, because we would like really to see that synergies, support, data spaces should be there in order to reinforce our capacity to build ecosystems and to continue to be a leader not only in research but also in innovation.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you. Stay where you are for a moment. We just have to get to some questions, and we'll start. This is for Mr. Haas, and it's from Violetta Georgieva from Europa Bio, the European Association for Bioindustries. And they asked, based on your experience with launching COVID-19 solutions in the EU, what could be improved to allow for an efficient and effective launch of novel medicinal products? Mr. Haas, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier.
I mean, first of all, to have a clear network in Europe, and the European Innovation Council is providing and is improving even more so to have kind of DARPA-like structures to have innovation, because the next crisis might be not be solved by mRNA, but by other innovations. So really to have this broad network that you really can see what kind of innovations are available in order to solve the current problem. And so it's about transparency there as well. When it comes to health, it's this kind of, which is working fine now. And I think it needed a certain time, because this crisis was coming across and most probably nobody was expecting that it was going to be that big, that broad, which even needed an international effort. And then it's really very good to have a strong Europe there to say, okay, that is a strategy, and we are coming here with one aligned opinion on this one, with the regulatory, with the financing, but then also with the distribution in our case here now with the dosages. I think this is really a lesson learned, and the lesson is well learned because it's working completely different than it was in the very beginning, and this is to be appreciated. And I think it will leave, as I said before, it will leave a footmark to exactly work on these kind of scenarios that you are confronted with a situation where logistics are not really working. The only thing what is working is really, and God thanks I really have to say, that the electronic systems, it's also the basis of the new communication that electronic systems needs to work. The communication flow, big data, this needs to work, and that's a topic next to what can we do with regard to regulatory and all of this. This is something, it's a kind of general kind of way to look at it. And I think this will happen and it will improve much more. I'm pretty convinced.
Okay, next question is for Dr. Bourla from Pfizer, and it's from a member of the public, Matthew in Nice in France, who got in touch via Instagram to ask, in view of the mutation of the COVID-19 virus, can you guarantee the vaccine works for the new variant? Dr. Bourla.
Right now, already several experiments, and we have seen that in vitro, and it looks like there is very, very high efficacy of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine against those two new variants, both the UK and the South African one. So this is a very clear indication, but I think we need to measure clinical results as well to make sure. But if you ask my opinion, I think the results will be very positive.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Esther, I think you have some questions from members of the European Parliament. We have over 20 minutes now, so plenty of time.
Very good, and I think they're queuing up already, Kevin. Let's hope this works, because we have to use another technical channel to bring them in. May I remind my colleagues from the European Parliament, first of all, to state who they are. Secondly, to clearly indicate to whom of the three panelists they're asking their question. And finally, dear colleagues, please do not touch the speak button after you're done speaking. Just leave the channel open. And I believe that the first colleague from Germany is Angela Niebler. Angelika, you're on.
Good afternoon to everybody. Good afternoon, Esther, Kevin, and the dear panelists. I have one remark to make. I'm from Germany, and I'd like to congratulate, first of all, our commissioner, because she did a wonderful job, actually. She arranged for, getting the funding, the financial support for companies like CureVac and BioNTech by personally engaging and arranging, that all channels are open. So I think, well, we don't talk a lot about it, but I think it's worthwhile to mention it and to stress it. Without engaged commissioners, we cannot move forward on our political agenda. And thank you so much, Maria Gabriel, for that excellent work you've done. Secondly, thanks to the two panelists, to the gentleman from the industry, and congratulations to you. You've also done an excellent job. I have one concrete question addressing all three panelists. We have very, very bright people, talented people all over Europe. We are very proud about, the talents we have. And while innovation is maybe not the issue, as we found out, we are also very proud that, the first vaccine being developed came from a European company. But lessons to be learned now from the pandemic and from the start, how we handled it. What needs to be improved? Is it as regards the production side? Do we need to build up more production in Europe as well? Is it the distribution side? Do we have a lack in having a network which works properly well? What's about communication, about marketing? In my country, we still have a lot of discussions on when the vaccine is coming. So what lessons do we learn? So in order to be prepared for the next pandemic, could you give us some advice from the political side? Maybe Maria Gabriel, you briefly mentioned the issue of joint roadmaps and ecosystems and where the hackathon you arranged for, but what's needed on the political side? And from the industry side, I would be very happy if you could elaborate in telling us, also politicians, what was okay, what went wrong, where we had been too slow, what has to be improved, and what do we have to build up in order to be really best prepared for the next pandemic to come. Thank you.
So a first question about the lessons that we need to draw from this crisis. Let us now bring in a colleague from Cyprus, Lucas Foulas, who's of course following this discussion very closely, but I know that he's also personally very involved in the fight against cancer. So Lucas, the floor is yours.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Esther, Kevin, and thank you for your excellent job. My questions are addressed to both of our guests, and two short questions. When will you test your vaccines for the kids? Is this in your plans, and what is the assumption there? And the second one, what measures are you taking to explain your production capacity to meet the growing demand? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lucas. Of course, I'm going to group a number of questions from colleagues here and then give ample time to the panelists to answer them. Now we have from Croatia our colleague Tomislav Sokol.
Thank you very much, Esther and Kevin, for the great job you are doing leading this panel, and I would also like to thank the panelists for being with us today. So my first question is for the Commissioner Gabriel. So I was Assistant Minister of Education and Science in the Croatian government, so I know that the importance of Horizon, and I know that Horizon is really tailor-made for research, innovation, etc., etc. But however, my question is about the synergies that we can make between this part of research financing and the other part of research financing that comes from cohesion policy, because we know that a lot of research infrastructure is financed from cohesion policy, but we know that state aid and other rules there are much more rigid in terms of and make it much more difficult to actually engage into research and innovation. So my question is, how can we bridge this divide and how can we achieve synergies between these two types of financing of research and innovation in Europe? And my second question is for the CEOs. It was already mentioned. So my question generally is about the importance of internal market rules for your work. Do you believe that that internal market is essential for what you are doing? And my question is, when you mention data, we know that we in Europe, and that is part of our European way of life, have a very strong and very strict rules about use of data, protection of privacy, etc. So my question for you is, do you find these rules to be too rigid, or do you find them to achieve the good balance between right of privacy on one side and the necessity to use data on the other? Have we managed to achieve this optimal balance, or do we need to change something? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then one final question from Andrei Kovachev from Bulgaria. Andrei.
Thank you very much, Esther and Kevin, and thank you very much for the panelists, for Maria, all of you. You do a great job to secure the vaccine, to secure the future of all of us. My two technical maybe questions, but very important, because we are talking now about some kind of vaccination or immunity certificate to be able to go to more normal life, also of traveling, of dealing with trade and so on. Do the vaccine also prevent of transferring the virus to other people, to the people who got the vaccine or who got immunity by the disease after infection? Do they transfer the virus to other people? Are they safe or not? Do we have enough data to answer very clear this question? Because this is extremely important for the free movement and for our further steps with this vaccination or immunity certificates, what the Commission and the Member States are thinking to go in this direction. And the second question is, do we have enough data how long the acquired immunity or antibody level will stay after the vaccine? Doesn't matter from which company it's coming, but the vaccine, is it something what is about 3, 6, 9, 10, 1 year, 2 years? or you have some other data, or we need still to collect this data. Thank you very much and all the best.
Well, those were colleagues queuing up to get that chance to ask questions to, of course, the industry representatives, but also to our commissioner. I understand I bring in the commissioner first here. Maria, you had a number of questions addressed at you. All right, then we will change approach and we will go to Mr. Bourla. There were a number of questions addressed to you, Mr. Bourla, as well, about the immunity, for example, and does the fact that you become immune from a vaccine also mean you cannot spread the virus anymore? Extremely important for our free movement within the European Union. And of course, as a mother of a 10-year-old, I also look forward to your answer when it comes to the question of Lucas Furlas about research on children. Floor is yours.
All four, because all four, I think, were addressed to all of us. Let me start with the questions on the remarks from Germany about the lessons learned from this pandemic. And I think there are many lessons learned, but one of the most important highlights, allow me to say, is the clear demonstration of the power of science and the strength of the private sector. I think this crisis has highlighted the extraordinary value that a vibrant, science-based biopharmaceutical private sector can deliver to society. And I think lessons learned is that I think we should maintain a vibrant private healthcare sector. And right now, Europe, in terms of science, is in a very, very good position. And this is testament not only to the fact that we have companies like CureVac or BioNTech, that they are pioneers in these vaccines. But also, if you look who are the people at Pfizer, for example, that are developing, are all Europeans. I'm from Europe. The head of research is from Sweden. The head of vaccines research is from Germany. The head of vaccines development or development in Pfizer research development is from Scotland. You name it. However, I think every successful organization is successful not because it's satisfied with the current position, but because it wants to excel. And the truth is that America right now is ahead of Europe, not because it has better companies than BioNTech and CureVac, but has many more. And I think right now the Americans were able to maintain a very vibrant private sector because they have an open market that can allow doing that. So I think one of the lessons learned it is that we should understand and analyze what needs to be done. So also in Europe, we will reach an even better level of scientific accomplishments than we have right now and be rightfully the leader. Let me move very quickly to the question from Cyprus. Vaccines for kids. Right now, I will speak only, of course, about our vaccine. Our vaccine is licensed from 16 years old and above. So we are going all the way to 16 years old. There are experiments going on right now, clinical trials, for kids 12 to 16 years old. And I believe those will be concluded in the next few months, maybe in the first quarter. When it comes to production capacity, I would say right now that, as I said, we are improving dramatically our capacity. And the bottlenecks are all related with the fact that these vaccines have never been made before. Eventually, and thinking that it's not only that they have never made before, but now suddenly they need to make for the first time at such extraordinary quantities. So there are bottlenecks that are related with suppliers of raw materials. These are highly technical, highly specified materials. And we are working to address each one of them. And this is why we are doing significant progress. I would say about also your colleague from Croatia spoke about the internal market, the data and how European policy about privacy and data protection, if they are bottleneck or not. I have to say that I am a very, very big believer that privacy of data is one of the most important things, and it is a fundamental right of the citizens in a democracy like the European Union. There is no doubt about it. Particularly when it comes to our industry, we are speaking about health data, which are even more sensitive than other data. So I think there needs to be a rigor that protects the privacy of this data. Now, if you are asking me that the current definition of rigor, if it goes sometimes to the extreme, I think yes. And I think that we can find a better balance, that not only we are having the fundamental principles are really protected, but also will not delay some of scientific research for reasons not related with the sensitivity of the data, but related maybe with the bureaucracy that couldn't differentiate this data from that data and the sensitivity of them. And then the last that comes from our good friend from Bulgaria, I want to say that right now we are watching to see if the virus, in addition to protecting people, is also preventing transferring the virus. This is not conclusive yet. We know that in animals we have a significant protection from transferring the virus, but we haven't proved that to humans yet. We have some encouraging data that are coming up, and I believe that we will know that sometime in February. We will have more concrete data. And the last but not least, the length of protection is something that is in the top of mind for all of us. It's just we need to give it time. Right now, we have people that have been vaccinated 6-7 months, and they are maintaining very high level of protection. We need to go all the way to 1 year to see if indeed they maintain, and then go to 2 years. The good news is that if we see that the protection goes down, in that case, we know that with one single dose of our mRNA vaccine, for example, we can boost and then maintain this immunity. So these were my answers to your fellow audience.
And on their behalf, I thank you very much. Now then, let's move quickly to our Commissioner, Maria Gabriel. Maria, there was a question on the link between the research side and the structural policies. And of course, also to you, the question about the lessons learned. Floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Sokol, for your question on synergies. And that's one of our main challenges now, how to transform this beautiful word into something tangible and something operational. And I must say that this time with the new Horizon Europe program, we have a very solid base to do it. First, because we have now a voluntary mechanism which allows member states to transfer 5% from cohesion and regional funds to Horizon Europe projects linked to them. And I insist it's a voluntary mechanism, but we have member states that will wish to use it. The second is really to simplify some of the already existing instruments. I'm thinking here about the seal of excellence. We know that we have thousands of seal of excellence, excellent project companies, but when we look at these seals of excellence, there is no so much finalized project because there is a very strong rules on state aid rules or the notification. With the next Horizon Europe program, that will be lifted, and we manage really here to offer to our regions, to our member states, many possibilities. And here is my important point. We need to strengthen our cooperation with our regions. In the month of November, we presented for the first time in the history of our institutions a joint action plan for the next 2 years between the European Commission and the Committee of the Regions. And here we clearly identified our cooperation, our synergies in the field of health, of innovation, of research as one of the main priorities. Now it will be really important to bring our regions together with us to define the next solutions and to apply these synergies. And that's the same when we talk about synergies. We need first to look at our home, and that will be my main task, to build synergies within the Horizon Europe program, for example, because it's really important on one side to continue our support for frontier research. Thank you very much, European Parliament, for your strong support to have 1 billion more for the European Research Council. I'm really quoting this institution because maybe not all our audience knows that, for example, the CEO of BioNTech, Ugur Sahin, has received funding from the European Research Council many years before, and that was so encouraging to see how now this vaccine and the data that we have can be used in a perspective to find solutions for cancer. So that's why it's so important to continue this. But we need to build synergies with our partnerships with Cluster Health, and we need to build synergies with the European Innovation Council and the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. And I'm very glad that this time we have a different starting point. That was the result of many months of negotiations between my team and the team of Commissioner Elisa Ferreira, and that was one of the wishes of the European Parliament, and I'm really satisfied with the final result. On the question of Angelika Niebler, some of the lessons learned. First, thank you very much, Angelika, for your kind words. I must say it's a team's work. And that's not only the work on behalf of the European Commission, that was a common work together with you, the members of the European Parliament, with a very strong voice of EPP Group and with our member states. And the main lessons learned for us, if I may, for me, there is 3 key words: talents, perspectives, means. Of course, we have our challenge in Europe. That means that science and innovation are not only key for a more resilient Europe, but we need to have targeted and strategic investment in them. We have to continue to have this support. After, of course, we need to promote more access to funding and to networks. I quoted the example of our platform for data, but we need to continue and to work with all our regions and all our communities of innovators. And here, the perspective is that we need this close cooperation between the world of academia, researchers, and the world of industry. That was amazing to see how during the last few months this cooperation was intensified and how it was useful at a very critical moment when that was so needed. And that's why I quoted the example that now we would like to promote the establishment and the development of those joint technological roadmaps where industry and business and academia and researchers can identify together what are the main challenges, the main directions, but especially what are the main instruments that we have or we need to invent and to propose in order to achieve them. And finally, of course, here, strong support for SMEs and citizens. Without the trust of our citizens, that will be quite impossible to continue. Better communication, but more simple information to them, to be aware of what's happened. And for that, I think that there is not only some lessons learned, but we have some new instruments at our disposal. At least that will be the case with the Horizon Europe program, with the new Erasmus Plus program, and that's my main message. Only together we can be better prepared for future epidemics, crises. During this one, we all have seen how much the cooperation between the industry and and science, how much the science and innovation are crucial. Now it's really time to simplify the access, to diverse the means that they have at their disposal, and finally to continue with the international cooperation to show that only together we can tackle those challenges.
Right. Thank you very much, Maria. I think this is unfortunately all we have time for in terms of the questions from the MEPs and the answers from the panel. Over to you, Kevin.
Yeah, question if Dr. Borla is still with us from Pfizer. We do have a question via YouTube from Yanis Natis. The question is, will Pfizer publish the contract it signed with the EU, and what sort of liability provisions are included? Doctor, if you're there, briefly, please.
Yes, thank you for the question. We are having contracts with multiple countries in the world, and there are a lot of confidential information, but either the countries have requested that we keep or we have requested that we keep, because there are a lot of elements that are in these agreements. But we are looking at it now for the Europe, because I think it has become quite a sensitive issue. So we will see if we can, let's say, produce some versions that we can release of these contracts.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That does conclude our first panel. We are out of time for that, so I'd like to thank all of our guests for taking part and for the questions as well from the members of the public, organisations and MEPs. Now to our next topic, health as a joint European task. Our panel, the European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, Stella Kyriakides, who will give a keynote address. We also have Professor Ugur Sahin, the co-founder and CEO of BioNTech, and Professor Walter Riccardi, President of the Mission Board for Cancer of the European Commission, and also the scientific advisor to the Italian Health Minister for the pandemic. We'll start with the Commissioner, who's going to bring us up to date on the vaccine rollout, the lessons learned from the pandemic and the Beating Cancer plan, and moving towards a European health union. Commissioner, good afternoon. Hopefully you are there. The floor is yours when you are ready.
I'm here. I hope that you can hear me and see me.
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, dear Esther, the Manfred, members, Professor Sahin and Professor Riccardi, and dear friends. First of all, thank you for inviting me today for today's health conference. It was really for myself inspiring to hear the previous exchanges, and it is really an honor to be here speaking in my political group with such distinguished guests. At the beginning of each year, and we're at the beginning of 2021, one has the tendency always to reflect about the old one, as well as to look ahead with hope to the future. And 2020 was in all aspects for all of us a unique year. If I may be permitted to say and start with something personal. This was something I could never have imagined when I became European Commissioner for Health and Food Safety. And to be honest, I think no one apart from possibly science fiction writers could have imagined how much the world would change and how health would be at the center of all policies and all decisions. And I heard this being said in the previous panel, that it is true that no one was really truly ready for this. The beginnings were more than challenging, but it didn't take very long for everyone to realize that we must protect each other in order to protect ourselves. And it was soon understood that it is better to move forward in a coordinated way than to go solo. A great deal has been achieved since, with more than 2,000 COVID-related acts being adopted by the Commission in support of member states, of regions, and of citizens. On vaccines, we also used to hear my country first, but suddenly everyone knows better, and everyone knows that we should have done it the way that we have moved forward. Only a few months ago, no one could have imagined that it is possible, or it would be possible, to have a safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine available. But it has been achieved, and this is thanks to scientists such as Professor Sahin and Dr. Turecci, who I would really like to extend our thanks and appreciation. One of the lessons learned from this pandemic is that investing in science and in research and in our industrial capacity is a very, very sound investment. And we must not forget that. On the 6th of January, the second vaccine was approved and is being rolled out. And this is only 6 months after we presented the vaccination strategy in June. And as Vice President Schinas has also said, this is really a historic success for the Union. I ask ourselves, how would the Union look like if it was only the big countries or a few countries who could have received the vaccine? 2020 has taught us that solidarity is not just an empty word, and the same is true for coordination. And I had a meeting earlier on this morning with all of the European health ministers, and it was really powerful to hear them all speak about the importance of European solidarity, of the European family, of how this vaccine strategy has really brought everyone together. Let us not forget that the whole world is hunting for vaccines since the pandemic broke out. And the EU and the member states have started the process very early, from May, and we decided then to spread the risks, and as Esther said, not to put all the eggs in one basket. If all EU vaccines are successful, we will have more than 2 billion doses for the 450 million European citizens and our neighbours. But we all know, and we have said from the beginning, that it's not vaccines that will be saving lives, but it is vaccination. And for the time being, and until enough people have received a safe and effective vaccine, we all need to show patience to protect ourselves and our loved ones and society at large. I know very well that lockdowns and COVID measures are not easy for anyone, and everybody feels tired and very frustrated. But corona fatigue often is coupled with a lack of trust in expert advice, and this is our biggest challenge after the virus, to fight disinformation and misinformation, because it is important that we address the hesitancy that we do see among European citizens, so that when the vaccines are there and rolled out, they feel confident enough to be vaccinated. The vaccine strategy is a European success story, but it is also an ad hoc solution. And the pandemic has made it very clear that our health security framework was not ready for a crisis of this magnitude. And this is why we proposed a strong European health union and proposed our vision for a European Emergency Response Authority, HERA, or the European type of BARDA back in November. And these proposals are the first lessons learned from the pandemic so far, that cross-border threats like COVID-19 cannot be overcome in national silos. They negate borders, they trivialize competencies, and they remind us daily that fragmentation makes us all more vulnerable. We are stronger together, and only in union can we overcome them. And in order to strengthen Europe's defences, we must better anticipate and detect emerging health risks. We need a stronger legal framework to support more coherent action at EU level, while of course respecting member states' responsibility and competence for their healthcare systems. The European Health Union will be doing exactly that. It aims to increase and strengthen our preparedness planning and our reporting and auditing at EU level, and put in place really an integrated monitoring system for infectious disease and other health threats. And it is not just about preparing and facing up to common health threats together. It is about building stronger EU health systems that can deliver better health outcomes for EU citizens in their daily lives. And this is a responsibility that we, each and every one of us, from wherever we are, whatever position we're in, that we owe to European citizens. And the new authority, HERA, that we'll be proposing by the end of 2021 will be aiming to anticipate and predict and prevent the next major health emergency. And as with the vaccine strategy, it will allow us to act together to procure and deploy countermeasures. A key issue here, of course, is money and funding. And this is why an essential pillar for the European Health Union is the new EU for Health programme. We now have a budget of 5.1 billion, thanks to the European Parliament and the group, and my group, my political family, which really has been such a staunch supporter and loud voice for this programme with others. And it is over 10 times larger than any other previous health programme. This will enable us to deliver priorities that improve public health and really support the resilience of health systems. And the Health Union is going to be an umbrella of many other initiatives, such as the pharmaceutical strategy and Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, which we hope to be adopting on the 3rd of February. I want to just say two words on cancer, because I know that it is a priority for myself, it is a priority for the Commission, for President von der Leyen, but it has its very roots in this political family. The European Cancer Plan through EU for Health will be supporting actions across the entire cancer pathway, from prevention to early detection, from diagnosis and treatment, from quality of life of cancer patients, of survivors, to those living with metastatic disease. The pandemic has shown that coordinated action is the best way forward in order for us to be able to do this. And a key lesson that we must take away from this crisis, because out of crisis come opportunities for us to learn, is that really applies to all areas of healthcare, including cancer. And cancer patients have been hugely affected by COVID-19. The pandemic has disrupted their treatments, has delayed screening, has created anxiety and uncertainty, has paused clinical trials, has affected access to medicines. And we need to address this and through this plan in a holistic way. And we also want to take advantage of the vast potential of digital technologies, including using our Horizon Europe Cancer Research Mission. And I want to especially thank Professor Riccardi as President of the Mission Board for Cancer of the European Commission for the work they have done and the recommendations they have put forward for the Commission for the benefit of all patients in the EU. And because cancer patients should have the same possibilities wherever they live in the EU, and we need to address inequalities. We cannot have first or second class cancer patients in the EU, and this is our vision through this program that we will be working towards. So I'll end here. I just want to end by saying that we've had a really an incredibly difficult 2020. But every new year does bring hope and confidence. And we have now 2 safe and effective vaccines, which are being rolled out in every single member state. And there is a perspective of hope. So I think that we would like to see this move forward as effectively as possible with European solidarity, the European voice as one. And with a stronger European Health Union, we could look to the future with more optimism. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner, and hopefully you can stay for some questions in a short while. But first, I'll hand back to Esther.
Thank you, Kevin, and the Commissioner said 2021 as the year of hope. And I think one of the key players in delivering that hope has been Professor Ugur Sahin, who is the co-founder and also the CEO of BioNTech. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Finding a vaccine, and you played a key role in that, but finding it in such a short amount of time is, I think, one of the greatest achievements of our time. Can you tell our audience how important cross-border and also European cooperation was when achieving this amazing result?
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Really a pleasure to attend here. And yeah, first of all, I think there are 3 reasons why we have been successful to develop such a vaccine in such a short time. This is the first reason is 20 years of cooperation. So we are doing research on messenger RNA technology for 20 years. I am scientist, and I started, of course, to work in universities. And I would like to explicitly mention also the support by the funding organizations in Germany, but also the European funding organizations. So we got funding for our research from the European framework programs already starting in 2000, and we benefited from the 5th, 6th, and 7th framework program, and this helped us to mature our technology so it could become a promise to make medicines, and that created our company. And we are working on cancer immunotherapy, which means that we are using mRNA vaccines to deliver personalized treatment to cancer patients. And when this pandemic occurred, we understood that we have a technology in our hands which could be used for fast development of vaccine. The second important aspect was really the commitment of our team and our company to focus on this and take also financial risk and just go with the speed of light to ensure that we can do everything, not only to come up with a vaccine but also to build our manufacturing capacity. And here again, we were supported by, for example, the European Investment Bank, giving us the opportunity to start investment into expansion of our manufacturing capacity. And the third and most important aspect was collaboration, international collaboration. So this is something, from the very beginning, it was very clear that we can't do it alone. And we have to do it with partnership, with international partnership. Albert Bohler was just a few minutes ago in the prior meeting. We had already a collaboration with Pfizer. It was a fantastic collaboration, and we therefore decided to team up with Pfizer. But it is not only a collaboration with Pfizer and BioNTech, it was also a collaboration with the authorities, with every stakeholder, which was involved in this process, the Paul-Ehrlich Institute, the EMA, the FDA, the regulators, the animal protection institutions, to enable that we can go as fast as possible. And only by the combination of these three aspects, that means preparedness, scientific preparedness, the full commitment to go into risk and do something, and partnership in international collaboration. These are the most important ingredients of coming up with a vaccine in shortest possible time.
Professor, you also mentioned cancer there, because your company is working on cancer as well. And I think a lot of cancer patients are taking hope from the speed at which we're now developing COVID vaccines. Can you tell us, in the field of cancer, are there parallel, can we see similar speed when it comes to developing cancer medication? And what is needed at a European level, maybe, to take steps towards a health union that also addresses cancer?
So I personally believe we have to define a vision. We have to define a vision together. And without a vision, without a clear goal, without a deadline, we will not be able to come up with solutions. So what we did for COVID is just we asked the question, can we come up with a vaccine already in 2020? And this was the vision, to come up with an effective, safe, fully tested vaccine in 1 year. And we need the same vision for cancer. We have to define a goal. The goal could be, for example, reducing the mortality in cancer or reducing the relapse rate after surgery, to less than 30%, or less than 20%. Define a goal, define a vision, define a date, and then ask the question, what is limiting us to reach the goal? And there are a number of limitations. So in Europe, we have, for example, the limitations for doing international clinical trials. It is still complicated. So in the COVID-19 case, when we submitted our clinical trial protocol, we got an approval because we had a lot of interaction with our authorities within three days. And for cancer, if you go for a cancer trial, it depends. So it could happen that you wait 3 months until you get the response, because the timelines are in this way. The question is, can we do it faster? It is not about blaming authorities. It is just about the question, what can we do to do it faster? What is needed? Still to keep the quality, but do it faster. So the other question is, how can we invest into different fields? How can we connect the scientific, excellent research that we have in Europe with biopharmaceutical development? How can we ensure to identify and support biotech investments, and combine that, for example, with programs that are already supported by the European Union, like the Horizon program. So I think we have just to ask questions. When you define a goal, then you understand what are the limitations to reach the goal, and then start to ask questions, and then have a lot of smart people thinking about that and coming up with suggestions how this could be addressed.
Thank you so much for those very concrete answers, and please stay with us for some questions later. But now over to you, Kevin.
Yeah, I want to bring in Professor Walter Riccardi at this point now. Professor, good afternoon to you. Cancer and COVID, they're already recognised really as European issues. What can we learn from the experiences of both the pandemic and the cancer mission moving forward?
Commissioner Kyriakides underlined the importance of working together, and we are seeing the results in the field of the pandemic. Think about what could be achieved in one of the Europe's top societal challenges, which is cancer. Just to give you some figures, with less than 10% of the world population, the European member states are already having 25% of the global burden of disease. So less than 10%, already 25% of cancer in the world. And this is supposed to increase by 25% by 2035, when with less than 10% of the population, we could have 50% of the global burden of disease for cancer. So we have to act, and Professor Sahin said that we must have a vision, and the mission is exactly what we try to achieve with the work in the mission board. We have calculated how many lives for member states we could save by 2030, and we discovered with a set of action, precisely with 5 actions, we could save 3 million lives, and we can grant to the people that have cancer and to their families to live longer and better by 13 recommendations for bold actions in 5 intervention areas. Of course, the first is research. You know, Mission Board is started as a research and innovation project, but it's not only research. Of course, research is of incredible importance, and we want to launch the biggest project in research, the biggest European initiatives to understand cancer is going to be called uncan.eu, and also to develop a EU-wide research program to identify polygenic risk scores with something that we can do. But also, it's not only research, we can also prevent all that is preventable. We know for sure that only 4 risk factors, whole behavioral factors, if changed, can prevent 40% of cancer. We know that eating too much and not practicing physical activity, smoking tobacco and drinking alcohol cause cancer. Nevertheless, the people are become more and more overweight and obese in all our countries, and the consumption of certain toxic foods is increasing. So we have to work together in order to prevent this. We know that breast cancer, colon cancer, cervical cancer, lung cancer can be prevented through medical preventive interventions. Nevertheless, this is not done. Just to give you an example, member states agreed on the guidelines on this in 2003. So almost 20 years later, there are member states in which this kind of prevention is not carried out at all. This means that there are people, particularly women, unfortunately, in some countries, dying because they are not offered screening. And we believe that in collaboration with the European Parliament, and we know that the EPP is very sensitive to this, we can develop some moral mandatory right for every European citizen to have access to this kind of prevention. And of course, it's very important also, as Commissioner said, to make the best possible equitable access to all European citizens. And we can achieve this also with the digital transformation. We have proposed to create a European Cancer Patient Digital Center where cancer patients and survivors can deposit and share their data for personalized care. This means that independently on the place where you live, you could have access to the best possible expertise without traveling abroad, but having in your own country, even at home, if you are equipped with the appropriate treatments, you can achieve the best possible care. We have developed specific attentions to childhood cancer, because we believe that there is the possibility of curing more and better. And also we want to accelerate what Professor Sahin said about the innovation and implementation of new technology and create oncology-focused living labs to conquer cancer, which means a better public-private collaboration, speeding the process of transferring the result of the research to patients. And last but not least, we have to transform the cancer culture, the communication and the capacity building. We are very optimistic, but no single member state can achieve this alone, and this has to be put in process of the European collaboration. So towards a European Health Union could really mean, in practice, saving lives and making the lives of Europeans better in every single member states of this continent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor, so much. Stay where you are for now. I want to move on to questions. And the first is to the Commissioner from Dr. Matti Apro, the President of the European Cancer Organisation. And his question is, does the fast development of vaccines and the speed of evaluation by EMA pave the way for EU intervention in many areas of drug treatment? And isn't it time for a coordinated effort led by the EU to encourage and streamline the development process and access to the drugs? Commissioner.
Thank you to Professor Apro. Thank you, dear Matti, for the question. Well, as you may be aware, we put forward our new pharmaceutical strategy in November of 2020, which exactly looks at this issue, the access of affordable medicines, putting forward innovation and being able to move as quickly as possible. And this is important because these are issues which are relevant to, of course, all patient groups in all member states, and especially cancer. Additionally, the new under the European Health Union, our new authority that we will be moving forward with, HERA, will be exactly making sure that this is that these are available. And through the pharma strategy, and I think that this needs to be addressed, we will also be revising our legal framework to make sure that medicines are both accessible and affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Stay where you are because we have another question, this time from a member of the public. It's Zuzana in Gdansk in Poland, asked via Instagram, how is the European Commission dealing with countries that decided not to follow the EU's vaccine strategy? A little bit of confusion, Commissioner, in the media in recent days about this. Maybe you can take this opportunity to clarify what's happening.
Yes, there's a great deal of media interest, of course, around the vaccine strategy. I would just like to say and point out once again that from the beginning, with the European Commission, all 27 member states have joined together in the vaccine strategy. They have all joined in, knowing following the same principles, the same guiding principles from the start. And this is the way we have moved forward in this solidarity. And it is important that we focus on what this solidarity has resulted in. So as agreed from then, all member states are on board, and all the contracts that we have negotiated with and on behalf of all member states. And this is truly a European effort.
Okay. Esther, we're moving on to MEPs. We have exactly 17 minutes.
Yeah, not that long. So please, colleagues, be very concise, precise and short in your questions. Moving to the first MEP from Poland, Bartosz Alokowicz.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Bartosz. Go ahead.
I would like to touch the problem of shortages of medicines. I remember the situations where it was impossible to buy critical, important oncological medicines in Europe. Many people waited weeks for the very basic medicines. It put their lives to danger. Now we are using a common mechanism to buy COVID-19 vaccines. Does the Commission plan to use this experience with some buying mechanism to buy critical, important anti-cancer medicines in the future?
Thank you so much, Bartosz. That was a question to the Commission. Can I ask colleagues to clearly specify who they're asking the question to? Next is Maria Carvalho from Portugal.
Is it okay? I would like to say hello to the Commissioner and to Professor Ricciardi and Sahin. And I have a question to the three members of the panel. This crisis has shown the power of research and innovation, and also the power and the efficiency of the European research and innovation programs, as Professor Sahin very nicely has acknowledged. But we need to do more. We need to do more cooperation with member states, as Maria Gabriel has said, more sharing of data, and we look forward on the role of the new agency for biomedical research. And we would like to see, at least in my opinion, not only tackling the emergency on pandemics, but have as an ambitious role this agency of promoting the cooperation on research on biomedical between at the European level and the member states level. So how do you see the scope of this agency and how this agency can help on this truly European research space on the health sector? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria. And then we move from Portugal to Spain. Dolores Montserrat, the delegation leader of the Spanish delegation. Dolores, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank sincerely all the great work done by our commissioners and for Ursula von der Leyen. Life expectancy in Europe for a child born in 2020 is 81 years compared to 78 years in the United States. But the most significant fact in the comparison of these two models of healthcare is that in the last 20 years, health expenditures by every citizen in the United States have doubled, while in Europe they have remained almost unchanged. No doubt that Europe leads the world in healthcare with high-quality universal assistance that are the root of our way of life. And after a union of market, of currency, we must aim for a union of health. We have already made progress and we have the pillars of this union, the European Beating Cancer Plan, the European Union for Health Programme, the new European pharmaceutical strategy, the COVID vaccines. And all these political initiatives represent an unprecedented opportunity. So Europe has to lead the world in healthcare as we are doing in the fighting against climate change. So my question is for the Commissioner, will we be able with the member states to look for this Europe of health and lead the world in the healthcare? Because United States and China are far from trapping us in this leadership. And I'm sure and I believe that Europe is always a success story. So I think so that now we have a really important opportunity to do it all together. Thank you.
Many questions to the panelists, including to our Commissioner. Maybe move to the Commissioner first. Questions about jointly buying cancer medication, the European way of life. The last question from Dolores when it comes to health. And of course, the question about the Biomedical Research Agency. So Stella, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Esther. Well, there have been a number of questions, and I'll try and sum them up as quickly as possible because I know that time we're under pressure. First of all, I had mentioned the pharmaceutical strategy, and this is extremely important because through this strategy and through relooking at the legislation, we will be able to address the issues to do with innovation, access and affordability of medicines. Because listening to Professor Ricciardi and Professor Sahin, it is so important that we have the science out that will be able to deliver the solutions that patients need, all types of patients. But if these aren't accessible and affordable to patients, then we're not really succeeding what we should be aiming for. And this is why the pharmaceutical strategy it comes at a very important moment. It is under one of the pillars of the European Health Union. And together with this comes the proposal for our new authority, HERA, which will allow us to really have the structural solutions to be able to anticipate the next crisis and to be better prepared, so that the EU can, as EU 27, for example, look at production capacities, address markets together, and really use all scientific breakthroughs. So these are all lessons learned out of this pandemic that we're moving forward with. We need to combine research and policy with procurements and with negotiations. And I'll end with what Dolores said. And I totally agree. This needs to be a Europe of health for the citizens. And at the beginning of this pandemic, all the time speaking with stakeholders, you would hear saying, where is Europe? We need more Europe in the area of health. And this is why the Commission put forward these proposals with your support, and the support of EPP and the support of the Parliament, because you're absolutely right. We need to be front runners in the area of health. And this is nothing less than what European citizens not only expect of us, but what they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kyriakides. We go to Ugur Sahin, whose whole life has been dedicated to biomedical research. So maybe the question on biomedical there, what need to be the next steps in Europe when it comes to biomedical research?
Yeah, there's no simple answer for that. So maybe one important answer is that biotechnology and science has progressed so much in the last 15 years that we have an enormous potential to improve health in many disease areas: infectious disease, cancer, aging, inflammation, and many other areas. So the question is, how can we use all these innovations, messenger RNA technology, CAR T-cell treatment, cell therapeutics, regenerative medicine approaches, how can we bring that to the patients? And I see that really as a question which is related to the whole path of development, starting from research until the medicine is affordable and accessible to everyone. So we have to look into all the bottlenecks and the steps and come up with a holistic approach. If we really want to improve, it is about processes. The process of developing, coming up with scientific insights and developing that to an innovation which is accessible and affordable. And this is a multi-step approach. And what we need is not only single elements for supporting, but really a holistic approach and asking the question, how can we make a fast road, a free lane for innovation reaching the patients. So the free lane approach means that we have to identify all the roadblocks and eliminate that. And that would be really an important discussion in the having a committee dealing with these roadblocks and asking the question, how can we generate a free lane approach?
Thank you very much, Professor Sahin. We had green lanes to keep medical equipment moving across borders in the first wave of the crisis, but now we need a free lane for innovation and remove blockages there. I think that's a clear task for several committees within the European Parliament here. Professor Ricciardi, there were some cancer-related questions as well.
Yeah, I think that it's very important, particularly for European legislators, to understand that we already have the technology. What we don't have yet is the culture to manage it. I mean, our health services and health systems, independently if they are in countries where they have a national health service or a social insurance systems, still lack the culture of managing data appropriately. And in this domain, we are lagging behind other countries such as Australia, India, and Asia. And even in the pandemic, we are seeing the difference. We are following the virus, while other countries are preventing the spread of the virus via intervention that, of course, is test and tracing, and is very much in the hands of old technology that in most of European member states has been denied the possibility to do that because of fear of the infringement of privacy and cybersecurity, which, of course, you have to take into account. But if we want to really conquer cancer and, of course, other disease, we have to change this, and we have to share data in the best possible way, respecting, of course, cybersecurity and privacy, but engaging clinicians, engaging citizens, making policies that make this possible. And unfortunately, with the current regulation that we have, this is not possible. So I think it's very important that you focus on this, because otherwise we are, of course, developing technologies, as Dr. Burla said, but there will be other countries we will lead the run.
Thank you so much. And that kind of also answered one of the questions in the first round there on the importance of data sharing here. But back to you now, Kevin.
Yes, we do have one more question for Professor Sahin, if you're still there, and it's from Zinar Shino via YouTube. He wants to know, when can BioNTech deliver to non-EU countries, Professor?
We are already doing that. We have in the meantime with our colleagues from Pfizer, we have almost 50 countries, with multiple countries outside of Europe. But we are also in discussions and conversation with European non-EU countries, and this is happening just as I speak now, and will continue.
Positive news there. So that pretty much concludes the second part of this special EPP Group Health Conference. Thanks to all our guests and to our audience for the questions. We leave it there. So we'll be back after this short video for part 3. Welcome back for our final topic for a better and safer health in Europe and the world. We'll be joined shortly by Dr. Peter Liese, MEP and EPP Group Coordinator for Environment, Public and Food Safety, and Dr. Tal Zaks, MD, Chief Medical Officer of Moderna. Before that, though, we go back to the EPP Group Chairman, Manfred Weber now. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, hello again. And thank you so much to jump again into the debate. I understood that I was a victim at the beginning because the technological system was not working. And I was considering during the whole debate we had now in the last 1.5 hours to imagine for a moment how such a debate would have looked like 1 year ago. So that gives us really an idea about what changed and how important it is really to do it now as Europeans together. As a politician, I must say, probably you allow me to be a more political now in this debate, not so much content-based. As a politician, I must say that having in mind that we debated 6 months ago about the money for the European Union, then the member states were only looking for the 715 billion euros they can get for their budget. They were looking on the MFF discussion mainly about the money they get for their national budgets. but they have heavily cut, for example, the research field and also the field of health investments, the health union program. And that was unbelievable for me. But there, I must say there was not so much public criticism towards such national egoism we faced. So if we want to be stronger in the future in these fields, we have really to consider how to get more money, more investments on real European level, because that is really bringing the European added value. Another field I see where we have to be as politicians clear is, we hear now from Professor Riccardi and Professor Sahin, the data use and the use of the data are so important in the fight against cancer, for example. So there we have a party political question on the table, because the left is always accusing us on data protection and privacy and so on, and we cannot share this, we cannot create big pools of data. That is not acceptable, and EPP is ready. Yes, data protection is important, but we have to use the knowledge which is included in the data pools for better research results. And especially artificial intelligence helps us a lot. We are ready to do so. There is a party political question behind. And on this best practice again, when we see that, for example, on cancer, we have in the East 30% less chance to survive if you are detected as a cancer patient. Unbelievable, unacceptable for me as an European politician. But having this in mind, I think we have to tell the member states, okay, we wait for a minute for best practicing, how to translate research results in the daily life of doctors in the hospital. We wait for a minute, but if it is not working, then we have to do something on European level. So I think that these kind of conflicts we have to identify as politicians. I'm happy that today in the debate it was obvious, it was clear that Europe is needed. National egoism is the pictures of Bergamo in mind, no first and second class European. That research, Professor Sahin again with a clear commitment that the developments of the last 20 years were impossible without European research money. And on this global power game, when the CEO of Pfizer is also underlining that it was good to negotiate with European partners. And I was happy to hear that he is even ready to consider more transparency on the treaty, on the contracts which we have on the table. Because again, liability and transparency is important for creating trust, and that is so needed in today's world. So thank you again for the chance to contribute a little bit, and looking forward to the last panel we have. I'm proud because EPP is really the driving force in this field, that we are the health party of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Let's bring in Dr. Tal Zaks from Moderna now. Dr. Zaks, I wanted to go back a little bit to talk about this technology, mRNA, and how it's been used for these vaccines. Why is it so revolutionary?
Well, what we do here is we are teaching the body's own cell to make the proteins of interest. And so this technology really relies on digital information. We were able to go from just having the sequence published, it was mentioned collaborations. You know, our starting point was digital on the internet. And within 2 days of having that sequence available, we had designed a vaccine and put it into production. And that's because we don't need the virus, we just need the information. That same information is then used through a messenger RNA to teach our body's own cell to encode the spike protein, that piece of the envelope, and to focus the attention of the immune system on just the part that it needs to recognize. That's why we were able to move fast, and I think that's why at the end of the day you see such high clinical efficacy for the mRNA-based vaccines.
I'd like to bring in Dr. Peter Liese at this point. He is a medical doctor, and perhaps he might like to talk to you about how this technology might be able to treat other illnesses. Dr. Liese.
Really, I appreciate this event, and I have to be honest, I'm very happy. I suffered from the debate in my country, Germany. Right-wing politicians, right-wing journalists said it was a total failure of the European Union. There was a lot of nationalism in the debate. Today, nobody said it was a total failure. Of course, there are lessons to learn, and nobody made any nationalistic statement, so we do this together. And also, like Manfred said, nobody said it was wrong for the European Union to insist on liability according to the European rules. And I'm most grateful to Albert Bourla because he gave the strongest message to the citizens. We need to follow the advice of the health authorities. Some politicians in Germany and some journalists say, would we buy more vaccine from Albert Bourla? We wouldn't have to keep a distance. And Albert Bourla himself says, no, you have to do it, because nowhere in the world you can avoid this keeping a distance. On the mRNA technology, really, I would be interested in the answer of how this technology could work for other areas. But I also think we need to clarify that this technology has nothing to do with changing people's gene. That was also the first question I asked when I learned this technology. But it's very clear, and you can make it clear, that we are not changing people's genes. We are just helping the body to produce the antibody. And I think this is very important, if you could clarify this again.
Dr. Zaks.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. It's a common misconception, so let's start with basic. What we are doing is based on 50 years of science, and as Dr. Sahin, who's one of my personal heroes in this journey, has said, science has been moving in very rapid paces, and what we've learned is that, think of our genes as the hardware. They're in our nucleus, and they're the same in every cell in our body. But every cell makes a different protein and does so only transiently. And that's because every cell has different mRNA. So we think of the mRNA as the software, if you will. Software doesn't change the hardware. The mRNA cannot go into the nucleus, and it doesn't do anything there. And if you look at what happens in the body, the mRNA is just a temporary information template that lasts, hours to a day, and instruct the cells to make the protein. That protein will last for a day or two. By 3 days, it's gone, and that's the end of the effect. What we have with the vaccine is now a long-term memory effect, which is why this has been so effective. But it has nothing to do with, if you will, the hardware of our genes and our genetic makeup.
It's certainly fascinating stuff. I want to move on to the West and the role the West has played in developing the various vaccines. And to both of you, maybe starting with Peter Liese, has the West a responsibility now to make the world a better and safer place?
Yeah, I think it was a success story because there was a claim of victory by Mr. Putin in August that he has the first authorization for a vaccine, but that was only less than 100 people that have been administered. It was not a proper clinical trial. And the first who came to approve a vaccine was a European-based company, BioNTech, in cooperation with Pfizer, and then Moderna. So it was our common approach and also our scientific standards that have been proved to be successful. And I am really convinced we have the opportunity and the obligation to help the rest of the world. And since today, I'm also more optimistic that we will be able to share the vaccine very soon. Because, Moderna and BioNTech Pfizer were the first, but I'm not so pessimistic that the AstraZeneca vaccine will be approved in Europe even this month. And this morning we learned from Stella Kyriakidis that even Johnson & Johnson, another project, will maybe even go for approval in February. And then we have already more vaccine in Europe than we need to vaccinate every European. And as we know, not every European will be volunteering. Maybe we convince 80% of the people, and then we are protected. But we need to help our neighbors in Western Balkan and in North Africa, for example. And our treaties with the companies foresee that we can sell the vaccine at low price or even for free to our neighbors. And I think that is our responsibility when we are in a situation, and I hope this will be in summer, that every European will be offered to be vaccinated, and at the same time we can help our neighbors.
And Dr. Zaks, how do you see Moderna's role in all of this?
Yeah, so I think on two fronts. First, I think we're doing our part here to bring forward an effective vaccine and do it in a manner that's very transparent. We were the first to publish our phase 3 protocol. Our data, I think, speak for themselves. And it's the ability really to be very clear on what the underlying technology is, and that gives everybody confidence. But for me, there's another important responsibility that I think we have, which is as the first to be able to show what this technology can do and demonstrate the pipeline of additional vaccines that can come after it. For us, it's really invigorating to say, hey, this gives us an opportunity to take on other viruses which are still unmet challenges. We announced this week that we're going to be going after difficult viruses like Nipah viruses. We have a collaboration with NIH to go after HIV. We'll be looking at other opportunities to leverage what we've learned about the utility of this technology for a wide range of unmet diseases, not only in infectious disease, but as others previously mentioned in the field of cancer as well.
Okay, I do have a question, and you've answered the second part of it from Sarah in Belgium, who was wondering about how this new technology might be used for development of new vaccines in the future. But she also wants to know how long will these vaccines keep us protected?
So it's a great question. I think it's a little bit early to say on two counts. First, the level of immune response that we see, we're following it from the initial estimate. It should be at least a year, probably longer. But of course, we're not that long into the development here, so it's hard to say. The 6 months data so far are looking good. And as we develop better ways of measuring how to know that somebody is protected, we'll have a better sense of that. I think the other question that people these days are worried about is these emerging variants. So far from the data that we see, these variants may be more effective, but they haven't been described to enable immunological escape. In other words, we don't see significant infection of people with new variants when they've been immunized or infected with the previous strains. And so on that count, I think so far we expect to be protected. Now, that being said, of course, we're keeping our fingers on the pulse, and should a new strain emerge that is able to escape, well, we'll probably call that COVID-21, and given we've got technologies that can move now so quickly, and both us and others like Pfizer and BioNTech have established a manufacturing footprint, I would anticipate that we could provide the world a new version if needed, now within a matter of weeks as opposed to months.
Okay, very good. We do have some questions from our MEPs, so Esther, you can start going on that.
Yes, I will. Let me just see who I need to bring in first here. Let me ask the staff to repeat that again, because that would... Thank you so much. Bear with me for a second there. It's colleague Lydia Pereira from Portugal that gets the floor first.
Thank you, Esther, for giving me the floor. And I would also like to thank Dr. Zaks for your valuable contribution for this debate. And I say this not only as a formality. I say this here because in EPP we believe in science, we believe in R&D, and we believe in politics based on facts and knowledge. And in the Parliament we fight hard to place science and facts at the core of policy and decision making. We are very proud of this in the EPP, and once again I would like to thank for helping us in fighting disinformation and providing a more informed view on the matter. My question is related to the myths and disinformation that grows amidst our society concerning vaccines. This is a very, very worrying matter, and I speak not only as an MEP, but also as the president of the youth of the EPP, and that together with President Tusk and in particular Chairman Weber, to whom I would like to thank for organizing and congratulate the engagement that they've shown on this topic. We are preparing a European-wide campaign about vaccination, and this campaign highlights the benefits of vaccination and how we need to work towards immunization to globally overcome this virus. So What is your take on the form on this from a medical and from an industry perspective? Should we, for instance, Europe and member states have targeted campaigns to schools, as kids also have influence in their parents? Should we perhaps partner with the social media platforms in joint efforts to overcome this situation? So what does the industry and you particularly think about this matter? And thank you very much once again.
And thank you to Lydia. So a question about busting the myths. We now go to Christian Boussoy, who played a key role in the new health program, of course. Christian, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Esther, and congratulations to EPP and to Chairman Weber for this excellent high-level conference. I would like also to congratulate our 3 commissioners for their efforts in addressing this pandemic. There are many lessons to be learned, but I believe that the Union delivered on citizens' expectations. We have the most ambitious health program, you mentioned, Esther. We have a robust and well-funded research and innovation program, Horizon Europe. We have the EU pharma strategy that will redesign the existing legislation in the field of pharma. I would be interested to see how we could continue to build a genuine union for health, because we do not have only to defeat COVID and become better prepared for future pandemics, but we have also to defeat other challenges such as antimicrobial resistance and cancer. And Professor Sahin earlier mentioned that some of the lessons learned and some of the experience will help his team and other teams to find better cures for cancer. And I would be very interested to ask Dr. Sachs if there are lessons learned that will help us to overcome and to fight better to other challenges in the future.
Thank you, Christian. So let's bring in Dr. Sachs straight away. There was a question about myth busting and also the lessons learned, both addressed to you. So we look forward to your answer there.
Yeah, so let me take the first one on myth-busting or education. I think this is really critical. One of the things I've learned in the past year, you know, I'm somebody who spent his life translating science into medicine, and like Professor Sahin, the pace of science has just been bewildering, and the physicians want to translate it quickly into medicine. But the truth is, if you don't translate medicine into the politics and education, then you won't get access and the medicines won't have an impact. And I think that on vaccines are one of the greatest inventions of modern mankind, and I say modern with a view in the rearview mirror, in terms of the healthcare benefits have just been astounding to our societies. And I think in the past decades, we've grown complacent about them. And so we've stopped talking about them. But even the childhood vaccines that we have, we've forgotten the world that would exist if we didn't have these vaccines. And I think COVID is giving us an opportunity to demonstrate that from a medical and educational perspective, because the unmet need is palpable and surrounding us. Now, from an industrial perspective, I think we're at the forefront of seeing innovation being applied to vaccines. It's been difficult, relatively speaking, to get as excited about vaccines historically in terms of an investment thesis. I think COVID is changing that, and I'm very grateful to be at the forefront of that. But we do need partnership with the people who people trust. And this is where I look to partners in the political world to be able to make that message. For myself, I can tell you I have only 2 tools. One is to share our data transparently, and the other one is to tell you that I believe in it. You know, I've been vaccinated. My mom's been vaccinated. My kids are in line to get vaccinated. We think that this is a very important tool. Now, there was a question on, the second question was on applying this to cancer and what have we learned. And I think there are 3 things that we learned here. First, the level of collaboration and regulatory streamlining, if you will, and sense of urgency. I hope that is something that we will take away from this. Others before me in the panel have mentioned it. I've spent my entire career developing drugs for cancer. I actually happen to be a medical oncologist that, by the luck of my career choices, if you will, I'm here in front of you talking about a COVID vaccine. And I've been passionate about cancer immunology my entire adult life. So one thing is to improve our ability to bring these medicines to patients from a regulatory and development standpoint. But there are deeper learnings, the first of which is the immunology that underpins it. The recent revolution in cancer care has been all about immunology, and both BioNTech and us are trying to bring in some of the messenger RNA-based tools, whether it's a personalized cancer vaccine or other approaches, to try and apply what we've learned in immunology in order to treat cancer. And the last point I'd make is one that I think Professor Riccardi alluded to, which has to do with prevention. You know, the most potent interventions on a public health perspective is actually prevention, and that's certainly true of cancer as well. And this is where the fields converge. You know, HPV vaccines have almost are on the path to eradicate ovarian cancer, or I'm sorry, cervical cancer. That's a function of these viruses. We at Moderna are starting to develop an Epstein-Barr virus vaccine, thinking that there is a small but high unmet need in certain rare types of cancer that are actually virally driven. So there are things I think we will be able to do both as a society and companies on the forefront of innovation to try and move our mindset into one of more prevention. Now, that's been challenging in terms of development because the timelines are long and it really takes a long infrastructure and a sense of waiting, because you have to wait for events to accumulate. And that's where changing the public discourse, and I think Europe is ahead here because of some of the national healthcare systems that are really ideally suited to those kinds of trials. So I hope the learnings for the future will be that we can learn how to apply the learnings in basic science of immunology, the ability of innovative platforms like messenger RNA, and collaboration with regulators and with national health services to improve the way we translate and ultimately bring medicines to people.
Well, thank you so much for that, and also for the examples of some exciting developments, hopefully ahead of us in the near future. You talked about also the importance of communication. Peter Liese, may I bring you in here? You know, vaccination readiness is a key thing in Europe to get enough people vaccinated within the population. Now, we know that our European medicines agencies have had a very quick but also thorough process. Do you think that helps in terms of the communication and the vaccination readiness? What is needed here in terms of communication?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's important to tell people what we heard from BioNTech, Pfizer, and also from CureVac. But I think also Mr. Sachs can confirm it for Moderna. The clinical trials that have been done for the COVID vaccine were not the first clinical trials. They were the first clinical trials, phase 3, with more than 40,000 people. But all these companies did clinical trials for other research, for example, against cancer. And the long-term side effects that some people are afraid of, they didn't occur. So it's not true that we don't have any information about long-term side effects from this technology, because there were already phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials. But obviously it's more complicated to fight cancer with a vaccine than to fight a virus. And there were also some viruses like the Zika virus that people tried to treat with this technology, and then the virus disappeared. So nobody would invest huge amount of money in a disease that no longer exists. So there is an important information that we have information on long-term side effects, and that what people are afraid of obviously didn't show up. And the second point is, of course, our process in Europe, I'm convinced, is better to make people really believe that the process is safe. We didn't do an emergency authorization. It was a proper conditional marketing licensing, and that includes several elements. First of all, liability, we talked about this, but also more sophisticated way how to present the data, side effects, and so on. And more experts from different countries looked at it. And I think it can add trust when I talk to people, and I did this already, that say, oh, you had a problem with pandemrix, another vaccine in the past, there has been side effects and you didn't look carefully. You know, the Swedish authority that detected this side effect some years ago, they have been the rapporteurship for BioNTech Pfizer. And if they looked at the data, I have even more trust as if only the Germans and the French would have looked at this. So we have many, many reasons to convince people the vaccine is really safe, the side effects are really limited, and it is much, much better to be vaccinated than to suffer from the disease.
So a thorough process that can also build trust in these vaccines that are being developed. Kevin, before I hand over to you, let me thank all our guests, all our panelists, and of course the speakers on behalf of the organizations and the MEPs for their questions. They were very valuable and helped make this event a success.
Absolutely.
Up to you now.
A very informative few hours for us here. Keep following the EPP Group on health-related issues via hashtag EPP4Health and via @EPP Group accounts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and YouTube. From us here in the European Parliament, thank you all for watching. Goodbye for now and stay safe.